Hi, my name's Phil. I'm in this inaugural LabourVision for the Labour Social Channel. I'm going to be discussing Labour Party policies, beginning with the recent bit of hoo-ha over workers' rights. Labour have policies of hugely beefing up workers' rights, not just in a way to reverse some of the decline under the Tories, which, by the way, is still going on, but to go beyond even that. So what are their policies and what are some worried about? Well, let's begin by going over some of their more heavily promoted policies, though there are a lot of individual ones. 0 hours contracts to be banned. No more fire and rehire on lower wages or worse conditions. Everyone to get basic workers' rights from day one. There's been a bit of a culture of companies hiring people on probation, which is fine in itself, but having that probation period last an excessive length of time in order to essentially employ workers who don't have the full complement of workers' rights. Labour have said, no, you use probations for what they're supposed to be for. Those workers will have their rights from day one, probation or not. There's also a policy to make flexible working a right from day one as well. Labour introduced the minimum wage and then the Tories changed the name to living wage. And now they claim they implemented it. Oh, I think you'll find that we came up with living wage. You came up with the name, not the concept. Labour have a policy to make it an actual living wage, though, by having the level set at the actual cost of living. Finally, the last of the major policies is to stop companies being able to class workers as self-employed so that they lose employment rights. So you go to a job. Oh, am I employed by you then? No, you're self-employed. It's much better to be self-employed. Oh, does that mean I can work for others? Oh, no, you're exclusively working for us. That you're self-employed. So Labour is saying, no. Only the genuinely self-employed will be classed this way once Labour implements its reforms. And there are lots of others as well. There's a 16-page document, which I'll link in the description below if you would like to read it if you have not already. So next, how are these policies going to be implemented and why has a row blown up last week about them? Well, reading the various news articles on these policies, you might be forgiven for thinking that Labour have changed one or more of these policies. According to Angela Rayner, the Deputy Labour leader, but also the Shadow Secretary of State working on this New Deal for Working People project, this is not true. She reiterated Labour's commitment to every single one of the policies. So why the row? Well, Labour recently carried out its annual National Policy Forum. Amongst other things, the forum shapes policies into workable manifesto commitments. There was a suggestion that the wording on the statement about the so-called gig economy had been, changed. Watered down was the term used. The document reportedly says that Labour are going to consult on the proposal to make sure that only the genuinely self-employed are classified as such after they form a government. Now, there's no suggestion that the consultation will explore whether the policy should be implemented or not, only how it is to be implemented to make sure it works. In other words, we can still expect that commitment to be in Labour's manifesto. So if the policy is still a firm commitment from Labour, why the upset? Well, first of all, it's worth noting that the Unite Union are the ones who are upset, but other affiliated unions have said they are absolutely happy with this. The main source of the upset is Labour's commitment to introduce a workers' rights bill within 100 days of forming a government. In other words, the manifesto commitments related to this bill will not be implemented at some time during the following parliament, because that's usually how it works. Your manifesto commitments, right, we're going to do this during this parliament. Or if it's a commitment for something that's going to take 10 years, you're going to see this progress in the first parliament. What they're saying about a lot of these workers' rights, no, this is going to be an absolute priority and you're going to see them legislated for in the first few months. Obviously, if there's going to be a consultation on how to implement the distinction between an employee and a self-employed subcontractee, and that consultation's not going to take place until they are in office, obviously it couldn't possibly be in that initial workers' rights bill because it would take more than 100 days to carry out the consultation, report back, come up with a firm plan and then implement that plan. But there is still a commitment to introduce it. So what might the reason be for moving one of the workers' rights policies from out of the initial bill and for implementing it later on instead, even if it's going to happen in that first parliament? The first possibility, if you'd read the news reports, might have been, well, it might be a way of dropping the policy altogether. Certainly that would be a good way of dropping a policy, to say, oh yeah, we're going to have a consultation. And then the consultation comes back and says, oh, it looks like it's not a very good policy after all. We'll just bin it, shall we? However, Labour have been very clear that the policy remains a firm commitment. There was no cunning language used. It was an explicit commitment. It was reiterated. So this is not going to be the explanation. The second possibility is strategic, of course. The Conservatives want to label Labour as anti-business. Labour are claiming that they will be pro-worker and pro-business. This consultation may be a way of Labour saying that businesses and trade unions will need to be fully involved in agreeing how this policy is implemented, so that neither workers nor businesses are unfairly hit by a nice-sounding policy being clumsily applied. In other words, Labour are heading off a potential Tory line of attack ahead of the election. Because the beauty of having a consultation, oh, politicians love consultations, it's that until the consultation is completed, you are unable to answer questions about the detail. Can't have details before the consultation, otherwise what's the point in the consultation? And if the consultation is not until after the election, well, you can't answer questions about the details, about the policy, during the election campaign. You can state what the outcome's going to be, that unless you are genuinely self-employed, you will not be classed as self-employed for some business fiddle. That is the outcome. But the detail, no, we'll have to wait. The third possibility is much more straightforward. It might be that there are situations where it's genuinely difficult to tell who is self-employed and who is a worker. This might genuinely be a case of the National Policy Forum thinking that a consultation's actually a good idea, but that there isn't time to launch it and guarantee it'll be completed before the election. Or more specifically, before the manifesto has to be published. Because the next general election could be triggered at any time. Could be this autumn, could be next spring, could be next summer, could be next autumn, could be the following winter. Either of the second or third explanations is possible. However, what is definitely the case is that Labour are still committed to all the policies in their New Deal for Working People document. Angela Rayner has made it clear that that document is still valid, every word of it. None of them have been changed as of this date. So hopefully that introduces you to some of Labour's plans for workers' rights. If you found the video useful, don't forget to click the like button. Subscribe to the channel for more of these videos every Sunday. And if you'd like me to cover Labour policies on a particular issue sooner rather than later, put it in the comments below with any specific questions you have about it. Thanks for listening, and until next time, I'll see you later.